Hello, everyone. Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. Today is Tuesday, the 15th of March. Click on the subscribe button down here in the lower right if you'd like to subscribe, and also the notification bell in the far upper right. Today's topic is King Cotton and cancel culture. Perhaps the biggest mistake the Confederacy made during the Civil War was its failure to ship as much cotton as possible to Europe during the first year of the war in 1861, where it could have stored the cotton and gradually released it into the market during the later years of the war. There would have been no blockade effective enough to stop much of the shipments until the second half of 1862, so a lot of the cotton could have been shipped to Europe pretty readily. As a result, the Confederate cotton warehoused in Europe would have been likely money in the bank. In fact, it would have been even better because cotton sold internationally for gold, which was more valuable than the Greenbacks Yankee speculators secretly and typically traded for it in the South during the war. As a matter of historical record, cotton prices during the Civil War increased 15-fold from 13 cents a pound to $1.90 a pound. Now, while the inventories abroad created by prompt shipments would have attenuated that increase if they had happened, the gains would still have been enough to provide the Confederacy with a sound currency. After the war, Jefferson Davis conceded the point. He concluded that if he had inventoried cotton in European warehouses early in the war, instead of embargoing shipments, which is what they really did, the Confederacy would have had a stronger currency than even the United States. Cotton could have been his ace in the hole. He just played his hand wrong. Embargoed cotton scattered across the South was often burned by his own troops to keep it out of Yankee hands as the Yankee armies advanced. Consequently, it generated little gold for the Confederacy, even though some Yankee speculators secretly did trade gold for cotton behind the enemy lines. In communications to Washington, General William T. Sherman complained during this period that such payments by the traders for gold would inevitably lead to the international markets where the Confederacy could use that gold to purchase weapons. In short, the Confederacy made a big mistake by embargoing cotton to try and force Great Britain and Europe to recognize it until the second year of the war. And they should have instead shipped that cotton to Europe and inventoried it there. This is among the proponents of this was Judah Benjamin, who was, I think at that time, Secretary of State, but he was a strong proponent of it. Now, similarly, the political left's use of cancel culture to defeat domestic foes in the present era may have now been stretched to the breaking point when it is attempted to use it against Russia. In a form of cancel culture, they are trying to defeat Vladimir Putin by telling all Western corporations to shut down their operations in Russia. The only problem is that neither Biden nor any of the Western nations can compel Russia to behave as though they were merely an internet user that can be silenced and is dependent upon Google, YouTube, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Twitter. Now, instead, Russia is threatening to respond to this form of cancel culture by seizing the businesses of Western companies that have withdrawn from the country after it invaded Ukraine. In short, approximately 300 companies that have to date suspended business in Russia could be nationalized, much like the American companies that remained in Cuba after Castro left. When companies like Apple, Nike, McDonald's, and other great international Western companies get nationalized, Biden's cancel culture sanctions may well cause Russia to reemerge as a communist nation, possessing all the ambitions for global expansion of the earlier Soviet Union. Thus, Biden's weakness in Afghanistan that really is the factor that emboldened Putin to act in Ukraine as he has, may lead to a Frankenstein version of the former Soviet Union. It's likely that none of this would have happened if Putin feared America's political and military leadership. But after Afghanistan showed that the USA is obsessed with pernicious distractions such as identity politics, cancel culture, political correctness, and other relative trivialities that make up the rubric of a woke agenda, Putin lost his fear of the United States and of the West. According to CEO William Browder of the Hermitage Capital Management, he says Russia can, quote, expropriate foreign-owned businesses in a relatively short period of time. It would be inconceivable to me if Putin is ready to tear up the rule book as far as borders with countries like Ukraine are concerned, that he would respect the rule book as far as corporate governance is concerned, close quote. Now, 7 years ago, Browder of the Hermitage Capital Management firm opined that Putin was on a path toward nationalization. He claims to have foreseen that 7 years ago. According to Radio Free Europe, Russia's Economic Development Ministry has drafted legislation, quote, potentially laying the groundwork for nationalizing, close quote, international businesses. Quote, the bill envisions that a state-owned bank and the State Export Guarantee Agency would have the right to seize the property of foreign companies that left Russian markets of their own accord, close quote. The White House response is, quote, any lawless decision by Russia to seize the assets of international companies will ultimately result in even more economic pain. It will compound the clear message to the global business community that Russia is not a safe place to invest in and do business in, close quote. And perhaps they're right. This is Jim Psaki speaking, so perhaps she's right. I hope so, because a second coming of the Soviet Union would be scary. Now, pertinent to this discussion, let me show you my book, Lee's Lost Dispatch. There's a whole chapter in here on the investigation and the discussion and consideration in the Confederacy of shipping their cotton to Europe at the early in the war so they could inventory it over there. So I recommend, I think it's chapter 1. It might be either chapter 1 or chapter 2 in Lee's Lost Dispatch and Other Civil War Controversies. Available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and other fine bookstores. My other book, Trading with the Enemy, factors into this as well, because this is all about the cotton trade, the intersectional cotton trade, actually interbelligerent cotton trade during the Civil War. And there's 2 available, all fine bookstores, including Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And finally, keep in mind that, you know, what's going on here in terms of this cancel culture attempt to use cancel culture against Russia. It really reflects, you know, the factors like identity politics, critical race theory. These things have become pernicious abstractions and obsessions, which are really causing the United States to take our eye off the ball. So in that context, I'd like to recommend my book, The Dreadful Frauds, Critical Race Theory and Identity Politics, also available on Amazon. And you can email me if you'd like to get autographed copies of these books, Phil, PHIL _ Lee, LEIGH @ me.com. Okay, that's our show for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.